Two tails, one head, yin yang. Three heads, old yang. Two tails, one head, yin yang. Three heads, old yang. Three heads, old yang. 3 tails. Old yin. Yeah. I was going to read a book my son chose the other night. A Color of His Own. Parrots are green. Goldfish are red. Elephants are gray. Pigs are pink. All animals have a color of their own. Except for chameleons, they change color wherever they go. On lemons, they are yellow. In the heather, they are purple. And on the tiger, they are striped like tigers. One day, a chameleon who was sitting on a tiger's tail said to himself, "If I remain on a leaf, I shall be green forever, and so I too will have a color of my own." With this thought, he cheerfully climbed onto the greenest leaf. But in autumn, the leaf turned yellow, and so did the chameleon. Later, the leaf turned red, and the chameleon too turned red. And then the winter winds blew the leaf from the branch, and with it, the chameleon. The chameleon was black in the long winter night. But when spring came, he walked out into the green grass, and there he met another chameleon. He told his sad story. "Won't we ever have a color of our own?" he asked. "I'm afraid not," said the other chameleon, who was older and wiser. "But," he added, "why don't we stay together? We will still change color wherever we go, but you and I will always be alike." And so they remained side by side. They were green together. And purple and yellow. And red with white polka dots, and they lived happily ever after. Our bottom trigram for our primary hexagram will be read as solid, solid, solid. This is Qian Heaven. Qian is superhuman cosmic law. Enduring, he determines the nature and development of all things, from the movement of the stars to the cycle of the seasons, to causing each individual seed to grow into its own kind of plant. Heaven is creativity in its pure form, the force that drives change and what endures within it. He confronts us with truth and what it demands, both as the absolute law of nature and as the challenge of individual calling, experienced as an inner law. He is both the awareness of what to do and how to be, and also the power to act on it. Heaven is Father, found in the northwest, the realm between autumn and winter, when the buds set and seeds fall to earth. Our top or outer trigram for our primary hexagram will be read as solid, solid, broken. This is Dewy, lake, or marsh. Dewy is lake and marsh, abundant energy that teems with life. She is the impulse to communicate, share, and exchange, and it delights in both inner and outer conversation. She brings things into circulation and gives them voice. This is the sheer enjoyment of participating in life to the full, expressing ourselves and hearing others and satisfying our desires. Lake is the youngest daughter, spirit of the fertile west and of autumn. Dewy, lake, or marsh above Kuion heaven give us a primary hexagram of 43. Once our second line transforms from an old yang to a young yin, we will get a bottom trigram read as solid, broken, solid. This is Li, fire, and light. Li is fire and light, both inner and outer. As an inner light, she is consciousness at its most lucid and unclouded, holding things together in the mind, perceiving their differences and connections, and discerning the underlying patterns of relationship. And as well as vision, Li is the light that makes things visible, the power to cast light on things, spreading clarity and the awareness of order. Li is the middle daughter, living in the south, the region of midsummer and the burning sun. And our top or outer trigram, apologies. Once all the lines transform in it, we will get broken, broken, solid. This is Gen Mountain. The mountain is still. It is a limit where you must stop. Gen brings each cycle to an end, defining a space where we can recognize, assimilate, and complete our experience. He creates a personal still center amid change where we can retreat for perspective and a firm foundation for new growth. He is well-grounded, confident, and of independent spirit. He is still and knows. Mountain is the youngest son, child of maturity. In the cycle of directions and seasons, he is the northeast, late winter, approaching spring, the pivot between cycles. Gen Mountain above Li, fire, and light give us a supporting hexagram of 22. We will get the titles to our hexagrams from I-ming's Taoist I Ching, which he wrote in 1796 as a Taoist adept. It's quite alchemical in nature. Our primary hexagram 43, I-ming calls parting, detachment from discriminating consciousness, repelling the energy of external influences. And our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 22, I-ming calls adornment. Private cultivation without ostentation, mutual complementarity of clarity and stillness. First off, we will look at what the I Ching tarot cards look like by Kibi for these hexagrams. 43. Kibi calls breakthrough. Breakthrough. Open up, eliminate, rupture, drive away. Get rid of the dictator. The bias is falling apart. Don't try to solve it by force. The top line, Yao, is a yin. Broken, the line, so the melon is drawn as a symbol. And 22, Adornment. Kibi calls grace. Grace. Hidden beauty before the downfall. Text decoration. The sadness and unadorned beauty that can only be felt in the short moments just before the sun sets. The card pattern color is a mixture red of fire and ochre of mountains. That's beautiful. To start out, we will read from Hilary Barrett's I Ching, Walking Your Path, Creating Your Future, which is a nice introductory I Ching commentary. Our primary hexagram 22, Hilary Barrett calls beauty. When we approach the I Ching to consult the oracle, the question we bring to it will always have the general context of how can I act in creative relation with the spirits or forces shaping this moment of time. Oh, we have to read 43 first, don't we? Almost read our supporting hexagram first. Hexagram 43, deciding. Key questions. What do you stand for? How do you define yourself? What belongs in your realm, and where do you need to make a clean break? Oracle, deciding. Tell it in the king's chambers. With truth, call out there is danger. Notify your own city. Fruitless to take up arms. Fruitful to have a direction to go. The old Chinese character for deciding shows a hand holding up a token, asserting your identity and right to be heard, even in the king's chambers. This is where decision begins, at the very center of power. That center might be inside your own mind, and yet still not feel safe. Declaring the truth loud and clear is dangerous. It stirs up old ghosts, inner and outer. Yet better this than ignoring and neglecting them. As the message of the decision spreads out from the center, it is fruitless to take up arms. This is a time to communicate, not fight. It will serve you better to focus with clear intention on what you're moving towards rather than what you're reacting against. Image. Lake above, heaven, deciding. A noble one distributes riches to reach those below. She dwells in power and virtue and also shuns things. A lake above heaven is a cloud, sharing the blessing of rain and always pure, never in contact with the mud. The noble one's generosity is like this, a pure, inspired expression of her character without ulterior motive. She gives and also knows what to stay away from. Sequence. Deciding follows from hexagram 42, increasing. Increasing and not reaching an end must mean breakthrough, and so deciding follows. Deciding means breaking through. As more and more is poured in, the limits must surely break. Instead of traveling with the cycles from increase to decrease, you take a positive decision to use and share the blessing. Pair. Deciding forms a pair with hexagram 44, coupling. Coupling means meeting. Supple means firm. Deciding means breaking up. Firm breaks up supple. Hexagram 43 has 5 firm, unbroken lines pushing out a single supple, open line. They embody an assertion of identity that breaks through indecision. In hexagram 44, the single open line finds its way back. And our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context, an influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 22, beauty. Key questions. How can you make the essence visible to others? What do you choose to communicate? Oracle. Beauty, creating success, small yield from having a direction to go. This is about natural beauty, like the beauty of a plant, whose form is the perfect, simple expression of its nature. It's also about the way people create images to communicate something of a person's or thing's inner nature. This becomes a fruitful way to engage with the world when you have a purpose in mind, like someone who becomes a suitor for the sake of his bride, or a figure of authority for the sake of those she teaches. This is an image created for the sake of communication and relationship, as a first step towards a chosen destination. Yet it only bears a small yield because it is only a first small step. Becoming something for someone is not sufficient to bring about significant results on its own. It's not the same as wholehearted conviction or ultimate fulfillment. No created image could ever express a whole person. So this is not a time to concentrate on results. It's a time for imaginative, lively exploration of beautiful ways the essence could flower and be seen. Image. Below the mountain is fire, beauty. A noble one brings light to the many standards, but does not venture to pass judgment. Perhaps the firelight is flickering over the rock face, creating shifting patterns of light and dark. Or perhaps this is the volcanic fire inside a mountain, still dynamically shaping what appears so solid and established from the outside. The inner light of awareness shines through the outer form, so a noble one sees all the standards, all the ways the world is governed and ordered from the inside. He understands how things are defined and how standards arise, and how many forms the inner essence can take. So where could he possibly stand to pass judgment? Sequence. Beauty follows from hexagram 21, biting through. Things cannot carelessly unite and be completed, and so beauty follows. Beauty means adorning. Merely bringing things together is not enough to create true unity. Just getting to the truth is not an end in itself. These things will have no real presence in the world. No one will be able to see or relate to them until they are fully and carefully expressed. We will also read our changing lines 2, 4, 5, and 6, which put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. They take precedence over all other elements and are the most focused part of the reading. Line 2 has the general context of the heart's perception, the emotional center, where you make and feel connections. Line 4, the capacity for action, asking how the work can be done. Line 5, strength and self-determination, clear vision, being in command. Line 6, beyond the main action, reviewing experience, asking what comes next. 43, changing line 2. Alarmed, calling out, evening and night, bearing arms, do not fear. Now the call to change has come. It's more important than ever to carry your message or charge well, yet impossible to know what the change may bring. So you are far from confident about responding to the call and peer out into the dark, constantly on guard against all possible threats. But because you are alert, you need not be afraid. Changing line 4. Thighs without flesh, moving awkwardly now. Lead a sheep on a rope, regrets vanish. Hear words not trusted. Taking a decision doesn't immediately make life easier. For you, the great, it meant accepting the responsibility to overcome the great floods and create safe, dry land to feed the people. Moved by a restless desire to accomplish his task, he traveled and labored constantly so that his thighs wasted away. Such long-term decisions become credible when they are made in actions, not words. Rather than talking about it, it's better simply to let your actions speak, like the man who leads out a sheep to show his surrender. Regrets vanish when, instead of fighting the present reality, you go to meet it with acceptance. This truly demonstrates resolve. Changing line 5. Amaranth on high ground, decide to decide. Move to the center, no mistake. The nutritious, healing amaranth grows on the high ground by itself. Nobody planted it there. Although you didn't intend or design it, there is something of value available, but not within easy reach. Is it worthwhile to go after it? You are well placed to decide how best to use your energy. What would be the balanced action? And changing line 6. Not calling out, in the end, pitfall. The oracle speaks of calling out with truth. If truth goes unspoken, perhaps out of fear or a desire to keep it in a pure state of potential or a conviction of self-sufficiency, then there will be misfortune in the end. Next, we will look at I-ming's Taoist I Ching, which he wrote in 1796 as a Taoist adept. It's quite alchemical in nature. 43, I-ming calls parting. Parting is lauded in the royal court. The call of truth involves danger. Addressing one's own domain, it is not beneficial to go right to war, but it is beneficial to go somewhere. Explanation. Parting is separating and leaving. In the body of the hexagram, 1 yin is on top of 5 yangs. Yang is about to become pure, while yin is about to disappear. The qualities of the hexagram are strength and harmony, harmoniously acting with strength, strong but not violent. It equally has the meaning of using yang to get rid of yin, so it is called parting. This hexagram represents repelling yin by yang. It follows on the previous hexagram, reduction. In reduction, one stills rejoicing and does not rejoice arbitrarily, so as to foster yang and repel yin, using inherent sane energy to repel the energy of external influences. The energy of external influences is invited by the discriminatory consciousness, so if you want to repel external influences, nothing is better than to first part with the discriminatory consciousness. After people get mixed up in temporal conditioning, the discriminatory consciousness takes charge of affairs. Wine and sex distract them from reality. The lure of wealth deranges their nature. Emotions and desires well forth at once. Thoughts and ruminations arise in a tangle, and the mind ruler is lost in confusion. Because habituation becomes second nature over a long period of time, it cannot be abruptly removed. It is necessary to work on the matter in a serene and equanimous way, according to the time. Eventually, discrimination will cease and the original spirit will return. The human mind will sublimate and the mind of Tao will be complete. Again, you will see the original self. But this discriminating consciousness is loved by the human mind. If you want to part from it, it is best to clarify the mind. Once the mind is clarified, the mind of Tao appears, and the discriminatory consciousness is easily dismissed. Therefore, parting is lauded in the royal court. The royal court is the abode of the mind ruler, where true and false are distinguished. When the mind clearly understands true and false, then the mind is not deluded by the discriminatory consciousness and easily parts from it. But since the discriminatory consciousness has been in charge of things for so long, its roots are deep and its authority is tremendous. One cannot attack it impetuously, but must find the right way between intensity and laxity before it is possible to settle anything. When the text says the call of truth, it means the true mind and genuine intent as the means to amass sane energy. When it says involves danger, it means caution and wariness is the way to ward off aberrant energy. Addressing one's own domain means refining the self. It is not beneficial to go right to war, means to wait for the proper time. Once one has been able to amass the right kind of energy and ward off the wrong kind of energy, and also has refined oneself, awaiting the proper time to act, myriad objects are all empty, and there is just the discriminating consciousness alone. Take advantage of the right time to detach from this, and there will be unfailing benefit. The qualities of the hexagram are strong and harmony, strength and harmony, serene without pressure, awaiting the right time to act. This seems to be the secret of parting from yin. And our supporting hexagram 22, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. Adornment. Adornment is developmental. It is beneficial to go somewhere in a minimal way. Explanation. Adornment means beautification. As for the qualities of the hexagram, above is mountain, still, and below is fire, luminous. Clear about where to rest, resting in what is clarified, one naturally clarifies illumination and rests in the highest good. Therefore, it is called adornment. This hexagram represents hidden practice and secret cultivation. It follows on the previous hexagram, observing. Observing is the path of spiritual clarity and alert observation, gradually progressing along with time. Alert and observant, one turns the awareness around to look within. Wise, yet appearing ignorant. Adept, yet appearing inept. One stabilizes clarity so that clarity develops, and understands stopping and stilling so as to rest in the appropriate place. Clarity and stillness adorn each other. Thus, clarity is not misused, and stillness does not degenerate into quietism. Clarity is the body of stillness. Stillness is the function of clarity. Thus, clarity is not damaged, and stillness is correct. So clarity and stillness are developmental. Although clarity and stillness adorn each other, one should value still clarity. Still clarity is not empty in action that does not use illumination at all. But while one is illumined within, one does not show it outside. One rests in clarity and does not rest where it is unclear. Clarity is within stillness. One does not lightly use the clarity of illumination. This is the meaning of self-minimization. Minimizing oneself, one is prudent and cautious, getting rid of intellectualism, inwardly preserving clarity of spirit. With open awareness that is unclouded, one cannot be moved by anything. There is much benefit in this, but minimization that is too extreme is stillness without illumination. It is not the form of union of clarity and stillness that this hexagram represents. How could it be developmental or beneficial? Stillness means resting in the highest good, being tranquil and imperturbable. Clarity means clarifying the quality of illumination, being sensitive and effective. Uncontrived when quiet, creative when active, clear in stillness, tranquilly employing illumination, attaining it in the mind and proving it in affairs. Only then is it called true stillness and true clarity. When the text here says it is beneficial to go somewhere, this simply means that this is the way to test and prove this stillness and clarity. When ordinary people have no concerns, their minds are clear, and they know where to rest. But when they have matters to attend to, they get muddled and confused and don't know where to rest. If one can be still by virtue of clarity, thereby to nurture illumination, and can be clear by virtue of stillness, thereby to master illumination, clarity and stillness will not be restricted and can be used according to the time. Planting lotuses in fire, hauling a boat through mud and water, the ineffable being of one spirit pervading the universe, clear in stillness and resting in the place to rest. We will also look at our changing lines 2, 4, 5, and 6, which put a pin in the map to say you are here, or here are some places you may find yourself. Each has its own, they take precedence over all other elements and are the most focused part of the reading. Each has its own general context. That of line 2, the heart's perception, the emotional center, where you make and feel connections. Line 4, the capacity for action, asking how the work can be done. Line 5, strength and self-determination, clear vision, being in command. Line 6, beyond the main action, reviewing experience, asking what comes next. 43, changing line 2. If one is cautious and alert, though there be armed troublemakers in the night, one need not worry. Explanation. If one is strong yet able to yield, is cautious and alert, taking strict measures of precaution, even if there are armed troublemakers in the night, one has already spied them out before they act, so there is nothing to worry about. This is being firm yet gentle in parting from yin. Changing line 4. No flesh on the buttocks, not making progress. Leading a sheep, regret disappears. Hearing the words but not believing. Explanation. When strength is not correctly oriented, the mind of Tao is burdened by the human mentality. This is like having no flesh on the buttocks, so being unable to sit at ease, and also not making progress in action, not successfully parting from yin. It is lucky if the mind of Tao has not yet disappeared, and one can therefore lead in positive energy to increase it. Then the regret that was there can vanish. But the problem is that one does not believe words about parting from yin earthliness, still having the human mentality mixed in with the mind of Tao. This is strength being damaged by weakness, not knowing how to part with yin. Changing line 5. Wild burdock root, cut through resolutely. Balance action is impeccable. Explanation. Close on the yin line above, While the earthly is in the upper position, the celestial is in the lower position. The mind of Tao is fooled by the human mentality and clings fondly to the discriminatory consciousness, now separating from it, now not separating. It is like wild burdock root, which must be cut through resolutely. The roots cannot be cut through all at once. However, the contest between the mind of Tao and the human mentality is a matter of a hairbreadth. On this side, the mind of Tao; on that side, the human mentality. If one succeeds in parting from earthliness, this is the mind of Tao. If one does not succeed in parting from earthliness, this is the human mentality. The mind is the abode of the consciousness. The discriminatory consciousness is connected with the human mentality, so whether they can be split apart definitively is uncertain. Luckily, when the celestial yang is about to become pure and the earthly yin is about to disappear, reason ultimately prevails over desire, and even if one cannot part from it spontaneously, one will be able to do so with effort. Therefore, by balance in action, one can be impeccable. This is parting from negativity by effort when strength is being dragged by weakness. I am changing line 6. No call, in the end there is misfortune. Explanation. At the end of parting, the aggregate of mundanity has receded, leaving only the single mundanity of the discriminatory consciousness as yet undissolved. At that time it should be parted with, and its force then must pass away. When the celestial energy makes one more advance, the mundane energy will then dissolve. Therefore, there is no call. In the end, there is misfortune. No call of mundane energy is none other than the call of truth of celestial energy. The final misfortune of mundane energy is the ultimate fortune of celestial energy. This is parting in which the celestial energy becomes pure and complete, while mundane energy vanishes entirely. So in the path of parting from mundanity, it will not do to be too adamant or too yielding. One must have flexibility within firmness and firmness within flexibility, parting gradually, advancing a portion of celestial energy, repelling a portion of mundanity, so that celestial energy advances to wholeness and mundanity spontaneously sublimates. If you don't know how to operate the process with appropriate intensity and relaxation, and wish to accomplish it rapidly, that will, on the contrary, foster mundane energy and damage celestial energy, so that after all, you will be unable to repel mundanity. So the path of repelling mundanity requires deep understanding of process. We will also look at the commentary section for each of our hexagrams, which often is a little bit more alchemical in nature. Our primary hexagram 43, parting, lake above, heaven below. Moisture ascends to heaven, which parts with it. Thus do superior people distribute blessings to reach those below, while avoiding presumption of virtue. Parting is a bursting forth. Above is lake, and below is heaven. Moisture ascends to heaven, then changes into rain and waters myriad creatures. It is as though heaven is being unselfish and parts with the moisture to let it flow down. This is the image of parting. What superior people see in this is that just as myriad creatures grow when there is moisture in the sky, so are the people secure and peaceful when those above have benevolence. Therefore, they distribute blessings to reach those below, causing everyone to benefit from their kindness. To distribute to those below is to distribute blessings. If one distributes blessings unself-consciously, then the giving is great. The generosity is real. This is like heaven covering everything and giving life to all creatures. This is what is meant by the saying, those of great virtue do not consider themselves virtuous. they are companions of heaven. If one is conscious of distribution of blessings being virtuous, this is presumption of virtue. There is still selfishness in the heart, and distribution of blessings will not endure. This is not to be considered virtue. This is what those who distribute blessings are to strictly avoid. Therefore, superior people view others and self as the same. Distributing blessings, they do not expect any reward. They have virtue, but do not presume upon it. So their virtue grows day by day, while their minds grow humbler day by day. They part with all self-satisfaction and self-importance. This comes about as inevitably as moisture in the sky falls to the earth. Working on the Tao, accumulating achievement and building up practice, carrying out such and such expedients to benefit others, is like distributing blessings to people. But many who carry out expedients to benefit others do so without genuine sincerity. Some do it for reputation, some do it for profit. Some make an ineffective outward show of helping people based on ancient models and then blame others when things don't go quite as they wish. These are all cases of having no virtue yet presuming on virtue, and are not worthy of the name of benefiting others. Observe how heaven bestows blessings on myriad creatures. Does it expect any reward from them? Not expecting any reward from myriad creatures, heaven has virtue, but does not presume upon it. If even heaven does not presume upon its virtue, how much less is the virtue of ordinary people to be presumed upon? Whenever one does anything for the benefit of others, if one can emulate heaven in not presuming upon virtue, one's virtue will not fail to be great. And our supporting hexagram 22, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. Adornment, mountain above, fire below. There's fire below the mountain, adorning it. Thus do superior people clarify government affairs without presumptuous adjudication. Adornment is beautification. Above is mountain, below is fire. There is fire below the mountain. When there is fire below the mountain, everything below the mountain is bathed in its light, and the fire illumines the mountain. This is the image of adornment. What superior people see in this is that just as the light of a fire below a mountain is not great, when people are lacking in capacity, their vision is not far-reaching. Therefore, the superior people administer and clarify the simple matters of government affairs and do not act presumptuously in difficult matters of adjudication. Government affairs include such matters as the state of the manners and mores of the populace, finance, taxation, and civil proceedings. The thriving or decay of government affairs is obvious and easy to see. They are not difficult to manage and can be changed when mistakes occur. When it comes to the matter of adjudication of criminal cases, however, where life is at stake, there are obscure factors that are difficult to discern. Any lack of clarification can bring disaster on the innocent. Therefore, only the wise and perspicacious can judge. Not judging presumptuously thus has the meaning of respect for life. The use of illumination by practitioners of the Tao is also not beyond this principle. Social relations and daily activities are like the affairs of government. The profound and recondite science of fulfilling nature and arriving at the meaning of life is like adjudication. Social relations are the human Tao. Fulfilling nature and arriving at the meaning of life are the celestial Tao. The human Tao is obvious and easy to see. Anyone with a bit of capacity and intelligence can handle it. When it comes to the celestial Tao, however, it requires the verbal transmission and mental communication of a true teacher, great enlightenment and great penetration, before it is possible to manage it correctly. When the celestial Tao is truly realized, whatever comes to hand is the Tao. Benefiting oneself, one can also benefit others. This is the greatest accomplishment. If one does not have the transmission of a genuine teacher and imposes judgments by arbitrary guesswork, even the slightest error produces a great loss and misapprehension of human nature in life. How can one judge presumptuously? Not being presumptuous is the teaching of sages that enables people to nurture small understanding so as to gradually seek great understanding. It will not do to presume upon small understanding and thereby ruin the great work, deluding oneself and deluding others. Indeed, a little bit of knowledge can deceive people very much. Next, we will look at James Dekorne's Gnostic Book of Changes, which I've left links to in the description box below. He is a practitioner of the Tao himself and has synthesized several I Ching commentaries in this one helpful spot. He also sums the thing up at the end of each hexagram and leaves quotes by Carl Jung and the Kabbalah and various other esoteric works. 43, James Dekorne calls resoluteness. Other titles might be breakthrough, the symbol of decision, resolution, determination, parting, removing corruption, and eradication, judgment, leg. Recognizing the risks involved in criminal prosecution, justice demands a resolute proof of the culprit's guilt in the royal court. One informs one's own city that armed force is not necessary. In this way, progress is assured. Wilhelm/Bain's breakthrough. One must resolutely make the matter known at the court of the king. It must be announced truthfully. Danger. It is necessary to notify one's own city. It does not further to resort to arms. It furthers one to undertake something. Blowfold resolution. When a proclamation is made at the court of the king, frankness in revealing the true state of affairs is dangerous. In vital matters, frankness may prove dangerous. In making announcements to the people of his own city, it is not fitting for the ruler to carry arms. It is better to repose trust in our own people. It is favorable to have some goal or destination. Lu, determination. Someone is proud in the king's court, and the king trusts him. If one exposes the truth, danger. It must be told to one's own people. Using force does not benefit. It does benefit to do something else. You must decide how to deal with a situation before it reaches a dangerous point, or things will take their own course and overwhelm you. Ritma/Carter, parting. Displaying tending towards kingly chambers, conforming, crying out, possessing adversity, notifying originates from the capital, not harvesting, approaching arms, harvesting, possessing directed going. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of separation and diverging directions. It emphasizes that resolutely dividing your energies is the adequate way to handle it. Sloughnessy resolution, raised up at the royal court, returning, crying out, there is danger, announcing from the sky, not beneficial to regulate the belligerents, beneficial to have someplace to go. Cleary 1. We read Cleary 1 is I-ming, so. Wu, eradication indicates a conceited pronouncement in the royal court on the one hand and a concerted call for vigilance on the other. It is essential to make the danger known to the people, but not to resort to force now. It is advantageous to have undertakings. The image, leg. The image of the waters of a marsh mounting over heaven forms a resoluteness. The superior man, in accordance with this, does not hoard his wealth, but shares it with his subordinates. Wilhelm/Bain's, the lake has risen up to heaven, the image of breakthrough. Thus, the superior man dispenses riches downward and refrains from resting on his virtue. Blowfold, this hexagram symbolizes a marshy lake being drawn or sucked towards the sky. The superior man distributes his emoluments to those below. Dwelling in virtue, he renounces them. Lu, the lake ascends to heaven, symbolizing determination. The superior man distributes wealth below him without displaying his favors. Ritsuma/Karcher, above marsh with respect to heaven, parting. A chansu, or chief son or superior person, uses spreading out benefits to extend to the below. A chansu uses residing in actualizing Tao, by consequence keeping aloof. And to actualize Tao is the ability to follow the course traced by the ongoing process of the cosmos, linked with acquire. D, acquiring that which makes a being what it is meant to be. Wu, the marsh rises to heaven. This is eradication. Thus the Chunzi distributes his emolument to those below and is loath to monopolize virtues. Commentary, Confucius/Leg. Resoluteness is the symbol of displacing or removing. We see the dynamic lines displacing the magnetic line. The figure displays the attributes of strength and cheerfulness. There is displacement, but harmony continues. The exhibition of the criminal's guilt in the royal court is shown by the magnetic line mounted on 5 dynamic lines. The awareness of danger and appeal for justice makes the matter clear. If he has recourse to arms, what he prefers will soon be exhausted. When the advance of the dynamic lines is complete, there will be an end to displacement. Leg, resoluteness represents the 3rd month when the last vestige of winter, represented by the 6th line, is about to disappear before the advance of summer. The single yin line at the top symbolizes an inferior man, a feudal prince or high minister who is corrupting the government. The 5 yang lines below are the representatives of good order. The lesson of the hexagram is how to remove corruption from the kingdom. He who would do this must do so by the force of his character more than the force of arms. Never forgetting the dangerous nature of his undertaking, he must openly denounce the criminal in the court and awaken general sympathy to his cause. Among his own adherents in his own city, he must prevent any tendency to resort to armed conflict. As a worthy statesman, he is not motivated by private feelings. Hu Ping Wen says, if but a single inferior man is left, he is sufficient to make the superior man anxious. If but a single inordinate desire be left in the mind, that is sufficient to disturb the harmony of the heavenly principles. The eradication in both cases must be complete before the labor is ended. Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. Resoluteness involves astute discernment of what is wrong and a discreet re-establishment of order without polarizing the situation. Be clear in your own strategy, but let common sense be your guide about how much you need to disclose to others. Avoid aggression at all costs. The superior man maintains equilibrium by distributing his energy equitably. He smooths things out. The 43rd hexagram is an image of the eradication of an inferior force from the situation at hand. 5 yang lines resolutely advance on the single yin line, which is about to be pushed out of the hexagram at the top. This is a negative image of the 23rd hexagram, disintegration, which shows the opposite situation of 5 lower yin lines undermining 1 upper yang line. It is instructive to compare the nearly identical message for the superior man in the images of each of these figures. The idea is one of fostering an equitable distribution of energy within the situation. Disintegration and the resoluteness required to rectify it are extreme situations requiring extreme measures. Such extremes must always be neutralized through a justly distributed balance of forces. A quote from Plato in the Republic. It's not the concern of law that any one class in the city fare exceptionally well, but it contrives to bring this about for the whole city, harmonizing the citizens by persuasion and compulsion, making them share with one another the benefit that each class is able to bring to the commonwealth. And it produces such men in the city not in order to let them turn whichever way each wants, but in order that it may use them in binding the city together. Compare the nuances of meaning in each translation of the judgment. Wilhelm's is most radical, advising a direct, albeit dangerous, expose of what is wrong. Most of the others imply room for discretion about what needs to be revealed. Diplomacy is the art of knowing when full disclosure only prevents resolution of the problem. Ritzema/Karcher alluded the proper mindset required to manage such situations. Chun Tzu uses residing and actualizing Tao, by consequence keeping aloof. To reside in actualizing Tao is to live directly from one's essence, and when this is associated with keeping aloof, we get an image of quietly rectifying a situation without revealing our purpose or strategy. Psychologically interpreted, resoluteness, like disintegration, depicts an extreme situation which must first be rectified, then prevented from reoccurring through the maintenance of a just balance of power, which is administered by the ego under the will of the self. We will next turn to our supporting hexagram 22, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. Adornment, James Dekorne calls persona. Other titles might be grace, the symbol of decoration, elegance, gracefulness, luxuriance, adorning, public image, adornment, beauty, conceit, vanity, veneer, facade, manners, embellishment, superficiality, superficial appearances, form versus function, art, ego trips. A quote from D.F. Hook often refers to conceit, vanity, or beauty. It stresses that the content is more important than the outward appearance. Judgment, leg. Persona should be given its due, but there is no advantage in allowing it to advance and take the lead. Wilhelm/Bain's grace has success. In small matters, it is favorable to undertake something. Blofeld, elegance, success. Some small advantage can be derived from having a particular goal or destination. The implication is that the advantage is not sufficient to make it worthwhile to seek that goal or destination unless no special difficulty or inconvenience is involved. The arrangement of the lines in this hexagram is very similar to that in the previous one, but it is adjudged much more suitable. The general idea is that, like nature, we should conform to a regular and well-ordered pattern of behavior, which, since we are human beings and not mere animals, involves a high degree of refinement. From the point of view of divination, it would seem that this is a time to watch carefully so as to learn how those involved in the situation think and behave, the better to influence them for the good when the opportunity arises. Ritzema/Karcher, adorning, growing, the small, harvesting, possessing directed going. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of its outward presentation. It emphasizes that building intrinsic value by embellishing appearance and displaying valor is the adequate way to handle it. Wu, adornment is pervasive and shows small advantage of an undertaking. Adornment does not change the nature of what it adorns, but merely makes what it adorns appear more attractive. In other words, the change is mostly superficial, but not substantive. The image, leg. Fire at the foot of the mountain, the image of persona. Thus, the superior man adorns his rule with grace, but makes important decisions in conformance with higher laws. Wilhelm/Bain's fire at the foot of the mountain, the image of grace. Thus does the superior man proceed when clearing up current affairs, but he dare not decide controversial issues in this way. Blofeld. This hexagram symbolizes fire at the foot of a mountain, the superior man desiring to ensure the enlightened functioning of the various departments of state, dare not make light decisions regarding legal matters. The component trigrams fire below mountains suggest a brilliance which cannot be perceived from afar. The Chinese commentators go on to suggest that this symbolizes a firm and somewhat severe exterior, which hides brilliance and the beauty within. For purposes of divination, this should be taken as a pattern for our comportment in the matter at issue. Lu, fire illuminates the base of the mountain, symbolizing gracefulness. Thus, the superior man clarifies ordinary affairs but does not judge lawsuits. Ritsumo/Karcher, below mountain possessing fire, adorning. A Chunsu uses brightening the multitudinous standards without daring to sever litigating. Daring to severe litigating, maybe is what that means, says. Cleary 1, there's a fire below the mountain adorning it. Thus do superior people clarify governmental affairs without presumptuous adjudication. What superior people see in this is that just as the light of a fire below a mountain is not great, when people are lacking in capacity, their vision is not far-reaching. Therefore, the superior people administer and clarify the simple matters of governmental affairs and do not act presumptuously in difficult matters of adjudication. Not judging presumptuously thus has the meaning of respect for life. Wu, there is fire at the foot of the mountain. This is adornment. The Chunsi brings openness to administering civil affairs, but refrains from judging cases in criminal litigation. Commentary. Confucius/Leg. In persona, we see the magnetic central line ornamenting the dynamic lines of the lower trigram, and hence it is said the ornament should have free course. On the other hand, the dynamic top line ornaments the magnetic lines of the upper trigram, and hence it is said that there will be little advantage if ornament is allowed to advance and take the lead. The elegance and intelligence of the lower trigram is regulated by the restraint of the upper trigram. This suggests the observances which adorn human society. We observe the ornamental figures of the sky and thereby ascertain the changes of the seasons. We observe the ceremonial customs of society and understand how transformation is accomplished in the world. Leg. Persona is the symbol of what is ornamental and of the act of adorning. As there is adornment in nature, so should there be in society, but its place is secondary to that which is substantial. The Konghasi editors say that the magnetic line coming and ornamenting the two dynamic lines in the lower trigram shows how substantiality should have the benefit of ornamentation. The dynamic line ornamenting the two magnetic lines in the upper trigram shows how ornamentation should be restrained by substantiality. Ornament has its use, but it should be kept in check. The figures of the sky are all the heavenly bodies in their relative positions and various movements, producing day and night, heat and cold, etc. The observances of society are the ceremonies and performances which regulate and beautify the intercourse of men. A mountain, says Cheng Su, is a place where we find grass, trees, and 100 other things. A fire burning below it throws up its light and brings them all out in beauty. This gives the idea of ornament, or being ornamented. The various processes of government are small matters, and elegance and ornament help their course. But great matters of judgment demand the simple, unadorned truth. Notes and paraphrases, judgment. There's nothing wrong with showing a little style, but don't become so identified with a role that it makes your decisions for you. The superior man displays wit and charm when that is appropriate, but relies upon shrewd discernment when making serious choices. Confucius points out the correct attitude for this hexagram in his third sentence. The elegant intelligence or brilliant wit of the lower trigram is being sat on by the mountain of the upper trigram. Brilliant wit is often just an ornament to make one look clever in the company of others. Like seasoning on food, a little bit of persona or ornamentation is life-enhancing, but too much curry powder overwhelms the meal. Jung's conception of the persona points out the fact that it is a major vehicle for the complexes to express themselves under the guise of social interaction. A quote from Jung in the relations between the ego and the unconscious. The persona is only a mask for the collective psyche, a mask that feigns individuality and tries to make others and oneself believe that one is individual, whereas one is simply playing a part in which the collective psyche speaks. For an urban shipping clerk to wear cowboy clothes may be a legitimate expression of his personality, or it may be the only outlet available for repressed portions of his psyche. When he begins driving a pickup truck and frequenting country western bars, we might suspect that his role is playing him and the real self is being masked by excessive ornamentation or persona. A quote from Elizabeth Hayek in Initiation. The person cannot be more than an instrument for the manifestation of the self. But people get so attached to their mask that they cannot free themselves from it anymore. They make a king out of the servant and separate themselves from their true being. They force their higher self into exile, into the unconscious. To receive this hexagram without changing lines suggests that perhaps you are more focused on form than meaning, or that superficial appearances are concealing something more substantive in the situation. Look deeper. What's really going on? Next, we will look at our changing lines 2, 4, 5, and 6, which put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. They take precedence over all other elements and are the most focused part of the reading. Each has its own general context, that of line 2. The heart's perception, the emotional center where you make and feel connections. Line 4, the capacity for action, asking how the work can be done. Line 5, strength and self-determination, clear vision, being in command. Line 6, beyond the main action, reviewing experience, asking what comes next. Our primary hexagram 43, changing line 2. 43 is called resoluteness in this Gnostic Book of Changes. Changing line 2, leg. The second line dynamic shows its subject full of apprehension and appealing for sympathy and help. Late at night, hostile measures may be taken against him, but he need not be anxious about them. Wilhelm/Baines, a cry of alarm. Arms at evening and at night, fear nothing. Blofeld, though disturbed by cries in the night, he who is armed knows no fear. It is well to be forearmed. Lu, a cry of warning, one arms at night against the unexpected without fear. Ritzema/Karcher, awe, an outcry. Absolutely no nighttime possessing arms. No cares. Slofnessy, softly crying out, at dusk and at night there are belligerents. Do not pity them. Cleary 1, if one is cautious and alert, though there be armed troublemakers in the night, one need not worry. Cleary 2, when there is a cry of alert, even if there are attackers in the night, there is no worry. Wu, there is a warning of violence at night, but nothing to worry. Commentary. Confucius/Leg, he pursues the course of the due mean. Wilhelm/Baines, despite weapons, no fear, because one has found the middle way. Blofeld, being armed and fearless is indicated by the central position of this line. Ritzema/Karcher, acquiring centering Tao indeed. Cleary 2, because one has attained balance. Wu, having the central position. Leg, line 2 is dynamic and central, possessed with determination to do his part in the work of removal. But his eagerness is tempered by being in a magnetic place, and he is cautious. However artful they may be, no attempts to harm him will take effect. Notes and paraphrases. Su, the man remains alert to unseen dangers at all times. Hostile measures against him will fail even at night because of his guarded alertness. Wing, it is best now to develop a continuous caution and inner strength. Behave as though you are constantly in danger. Through intense awareness, you gain insecurity and need. Through intense awareness, you gain insecurity and need not fear difficulties. Editor, psychologically, late at night is when consciousness is asleep and vulnerable, and when autonomous forces within the psyche are most powerful. However, this line displays a strength that is balanced and conscientious. Despite anxiety, he is able to take care of himself. The line can be a warning to prepare yourself against approaching stress. A quote from Yamamoto Tsunetomo in the Book of the Samurai, if by setting one's heart right every morning and evening, a samurai is able to live as though his body were already dead, he gains freedom in the way. His whole life will be without blame, and he will succeed in his calling. James Dekorne breaks changing line 2 down into two possible succinct definitions, A and B. A, vulnerable yet protected. Forewarned is forearmed. And B, Balanced perception protects the work from the excesses of unconscious forces. Changing line 4. Leg. The fourth line dynamic shows one from whose buttocks the skin has been stripped and who walks slowly and with difficulty. If he could act like a sheep led after its companions, occasion for repentance would disappear. But though he hear these words, he will not believe them. Wilhelm Baines. There is no skin on his thighs, and walking comes hard. If a man were to let himself be led like a sheep, remorse would disappear. But if these words are heard, they will not be believed. Blofeld. His haunches have been flayed, and he walks falteringly. Though he could put an end to his shame by allowing himself to be dragged along like a sheep, moreover, he puts no faith in the words of others. Having recently suffered, we advance with hesitation and are unwilling to accept useful but rather humiliating assistance. Commentary. Confucius/Leg. He is not in the place appropriate to him. He hears but does not understand. Wilhelm/Baines. There is no clear comprehension. Blofeld. Having no faith in the words of others shows lack of intelligence. Ritzema/Karcher. Understanding not brightened indeed. Cleary 2. Being out of place, not hearing clearly. Wu. His position is improper. He does not understand it. Leg. Just closed. There we go. Apologize. My window closed all of a sudden. He does not understand it. There we are. Leg. Line 4 is not in the center, nor in a place appropriate for a dynamic line. He therefore will not be at rest, nor do anything to accomplish the work of the hexagram. He is symbolized as a culprit who has been whipped. Alone, he can do nothing. If he could follow others like a sheep led along, he might accomplish something, but he will not listen to advice. Notes and paraphrases. Suit. The man is restless and wishes to enforce his will by stubbornly pushing forward, but he meets with insuperable antagonisms. Advice to desist and to follow others is ignored. Wing. As you continue to push forward, you meet with one obstacle after the next. Your resoluteness has reached a degree where you cannot stop yourself. If you would submit to the difficult times and allow others to lead, your problems would resolve themselves. Such advice is meaningless, however, since you cannot be led. Editor. The image here is clearly one of willful stubbornness. The harsh indictment is mitigated somewhat by Leg's Confucian commentary. He hears but does not understand. With all of the goodwill in the world, it is still possible to receive this line, and the commentary takes some of the sting out of it by saying that you simply haven't gotten the message yet. The self is a terrible archetype, far more like the wrathful Yahweh than the forgiving Christ, and there are phases of the work in which no matter what you do, it seems to be wrong. One must learn to live with this fact. A quote from A. Ruthberg in The Sword of the Golem. The Lord leads the willing. He drags the unwilling in his wake. James Dekorne breaks changing line 4 into two possible succinct definitions, A and B. A, you create hardship for yourself through your own stubbornness. And B, you haven't gotten the message yet. You don't understand, yet insist on pushing ahead anyway. Changing line 5, Leg. The fifth line dynamic shows the small men like a bed of purslane, which ought to be uprooted with the utmost determination. The subject of the line having such determination, his action in harmony with his central position will lead to no error or blame. Wilhelm/Baines, in dealing with weeds, firm resolution is necessary. Walking in the middle remains free of blame. Blofeld, with the tenacity of spinach clinging to the earth, he blamelessly steers a middle course, that is, weak but determined. Liu, clinging weeds, determination is necessary, taking the middle path, no blame. Slofnacy, the amaranth burns so broken up, in the middle of the ranks there is no trouble. Cleary 1, wild burdock root, cut through resolutely, balanced action is impeccable. Cleary 2, a hill of amaranth, parting with what is to be parted with, balanced action is faultless. Here it is appropriate to part with what the other yongs part with, i.e. the top yin line, but still preserve and nurture it. This is the path of balanced action, whereby it is possible to be faultless. However, when parting, after all, one does not avoid distinguishing between developed and undeveloped people, though one still does not forget what is universally the same in everyone. Therefore, balance is not yet obvious. Wu, like the lead sheep of a flock, he is determined to lead the charge against the little man. His approach from the center results in no error. Commentary, Confucius/Leg, his standing in the do mean is not yet clearly displayed. Wilhelm/Baines, the middle is not yet in the light. Blofeld, yes, blamelessly, but not brilliantly. In this situation, we can do well enough, but not very well. Ritzel/Karcher, center not yet shining indeed. Cleary too, balanced action is faultless, but balance is not yet obvious. Wu, though central, his action is not enlightening. Leg, purslane grows in shady places, and hence we find it here in close contiguity to the topmost line, which is yin. Line 5's proximity to line 6 is supposed to have a bad effect on him, so that while he does what his central position requires, it is not without an effort. Chang Su says, if a man cherishes a single illicit desire in his mind, he has left the right way. Since 5 is the ruler's seat, evil may come to him, and strenuous efforts must be made to prevent such an evil. Notes and paraphrases Su. Uprooting corruption from high offices requires the utmost determination. Wing. When attempting to overthrow adversaries or obstacles in powerful positions, great resolution and determination are necessary. The roots of this opposition run wide and deep, and unless completely eradicated, it may spring back to power. A calm thoroughness will see you through. Editor. Wilhelm and Lu render the other translators' wide range of specific plants as weeds, which is a much more evocative image of the inferior forces symbolized in this line. Psychologically, the idea is clear enough. Unless one uproots or brings under control every remnant of independent habitual effect within the psyche, it will eventually return to harm the work. Sometimes the majority Confucian commentary does not seem to apply, in which case Cleary's minority Buddhist interpretation above may be more apt. A quote from Shakespeare in Henry V, or VI. Now 'tis the spring, and weeds are shallow-rooted. Suffer them now, and they'll overgrow the garden. James Dekorne breaks changing line 5 down into two possible succinct definitions, A and B. A, succumbing to neither despair nor overconfidence. One resolutely eliminates every trace of inferior perception and feeling associated with the matter at hand. And B, a balanced viewpoint roots out error. And changing line 6. Leg, the 6th line magnetic shows its subject without any helpers on whom to call. Her end will be evil. Wilhelm/Baines, no cry, in the end misfortune comes. Blofeld, in the end misfortune will come without warning. Lu, without a cry, misfortune in the end. If you get this line, you will have difficulty in a new undertaking. Ritzel/Karcher, without crying out, completing, possessing a pitfall. Commentary, Confucius/Leg, there is the misery of having none on whom to call. The end will be that she cannot continue any longer. Wilhelm/Baines, the misfortune of not crying out should, in the end, not be allowed to persist. Blofeld, this unheralded misfortune will be due to our failure to persist to the end. Ritzel/Karcher, without crying out's pitfall, completing, not permitting long living indeed. Crying out/outcry, how? HAO, is to call out, proclaim, signal, order, command, mark, label, sign. Cleary 2, there cannot be growth at the end. The 5 lines below epitomize the exhortations and admonitions of sages to the strong who gather together. Here, one who is weak is at the top, and even though correct, is unable to call forth caution for preparedness, so in the end cannot grow. Wu. The foreboding of having no one to call for help will come before long. Leg. The subject of the sixth line standing above may be easily disposed of. Notes and paraphrases. Su. Just as victory is at hand, the man finds no helpers to eradicate the remaining evil. The evil conceals itself, only to spring up again at a later time. Wing. Danger comes from a seed of evil in your own self, capital Self, perhaps a self-delusion or conceit that blinds you. Just when you feel you may relax your resolve and continue without helpers, it will cause you to err. Misfortune. Anthony. We need not harbor anger or hold on to bad memories to remind ourselves that the situation is unresolved. We must leave correction or punishment of the evil inferiors to the sage, as this is not our province of action. Editor. Despite Legg's one-sentence dismissal of this line in his annotation, there is a great deal of ambiguity here. Notice the range of interpretations for the Confucian commentary. None of them say the same thing in English, and Wilhelm's is so labored as to be virtually meaningless. These are strong clues that the text may be ambiguous in the original Chinese. Because Blofeld's translation of Hao, H-A-O, outcry, as warning makes plausible sense, at its most neutral, the line can depict an unexpected catastrophe. Also note that although blame is implied for line 6 via the symbolic structure of the hexagram, its actual text contains no value judgment, and as a magnetic line, it remains correctly placed at the top. To complicate things even further, the message can be interpreted as either the elimination or the escape of an inferior force, and depending on the context of the question, one can mediate for hours to ascertain what exactly is meant. In a differentiated multiverse, there will always be forces requiring reconciliation and synthesis. Nothing is ever eradicated. If this is the only changing line, the new hexagram becomes the dynamic, with the corresponding line depicting the consequences of arrogance. Quote from E.C. Whitmont in The Symbolic Quest. The shadow cannot be eliminated. It is the ever-present dark brother or sister. Whenever we fail to see where it stands, there is likely to be trouble afoot. For then it is certain to be standing behind us. The adequate question, therefore, never is, have I a shadow problem? Have I a negative side? But rather, where does it happen to be right now? When we cannot see it, it is time to beware. James Dekorne breaks changing line 6 into 4 possible succinct definitions, A, B, C, and D. A. The image suggests the disempowerment of inferior force. Quarantine without allies results in elimination of authority or influence. A negative inferior force is terminated due to lack of support. B. The image suggests a sudden, unexpected misfortune of some sort. C. The image suggests a demonically stubborn force which escapes rectification. And D. You are alone without allies in a vulnerable position or questionable endeavor. We will now get a randomly card-drawn verse from the Tao Te Ching while we attempt to sum the reading up. Our primary hexagram 43, parting. Has this dude holding a melon in the air. Breakthrough. And we have Dewy Laker March above Qian Heaven, the Trigrams, and it's like a cloud going up into the sky. And when the cloud goes up in the sky, it rains down onto myriad beings and delivers them nurturance. There was something I thought that was pretty great in Lu I-ming's Taoist I Ching regarding 43. Yeah, it's talking about parting from discriminatory consciousness. After people get mixed up in temporal conditioning, the discriminatory consciousness takes charge of affairs, Wine and sex distract them from reality. The lure of wealth deranges their nature. Emotions and desires well forth at once. Thoughts and ruminations arise in a tangle, and the mind ruler is lost in confusion. Because habituation becomes second nature over a long period of time, it cannot be abruptly removed. It is necessary to work on the matter in a serene and equanimous way according to the time. Eventually, discrimination will cease and the original spirit will return. The human mind will sublimate and the mind of Tao will be complete. Again, you will see the original self. But this discriminating consciousness is loved by the human mind. If you want to part from it, it is best first to clarify the mind. Once the mind is clarified, the mind of Tao appears, and the discriminatory consciousness is easily dismissed. Therefore, parting is lauded in the royal court. The royal court is the abode of the mind ruler, where true and false are distinguished. When the mind clearly understands true and false, then the mind is not deluded by the discriminatory consciousness and easily parts from it. But since the discriminatory consciousness has been in charge of things for so long, its roots are deep and its authority is tremendous. One cannot attack it impetuously, but must find the right way between intensity and laxity before it is possible to settle anything. Once one has been able to amass the right kind of energy and ward off the wrong kind of energy, and also has refined oneself, awaiting the proper time to act, myriad objects are all empty, and there is just the discriminating consciousness alone. Take advantage of the right time to detach from this, and there will be unfailing benefit. The qualities of the hexagram are strength and harmony, serene without pressure, awaiting the time to act. This seems to be the secret of parting from yin. In this hexagram, there's a false yin at the top of a bunch of yang lines, and so it's like a less than optimal element in a top position of government. And in that situation, in James Dekorne's Gnostic Book of Changes, it talks about that. Let me read it because I thought it was good. Seems applicable. 43. Yeah, here we go. Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. Resoluteness involves astute discernment of what is wrong and discreet reestablishment of order without polarizing the situation. Be clear in your own strategy, but let common sense be your guide about how much you need to disclose to others. Avoid aggression at all costs. The superior man maintains equilibrium by distributing his energy equitably. He smooths things out. The 43rd hexagram is an image of the eradication of an inferior force from the situation at hand. 5 yang lines resolutely advance on the single yin line, which is about to be pushed out of the hexagram at the top. This is a negative image of the 23rd hexagram, disintegration, which shows the opposite situation of 5 lower yin lines undermining 1 upper yang line. It is instructive to compare the nearly identical messages for the superior man in the images of each of these figures. The idea is one of fostering an equitable distribution of energy within the situation. Disintegration and the resoluteness required to rectify it are extreme situations requiring extreme measures. Such extremes must always be neutralized through a justly distributed balance of forces. In The Republic by Plato, this is a quote, "It's not the concern of law that any one class in the city fare exceptionally well, but it contrives to bring this about for the whole city, harmonizing the citizens by persuasion and compulsion, making them share with one another the benefit that each class is able to bring to the commonwealth. And it produces such men in the city, not in order to let them turn whichever way each wants, but in order that it may use them in binding the city together." Earlier on, there was something. Here we go. Leg in the commentary. Resoluteness represents the 3rd month when the last vestige of winter, represented by the 6th line, is about to disappear before the advance of summer. The single yin line at the top symbolizes an inferior man, a feudal prince or high minister who is corrupting the government. The 5 yang lines below are the representatives of good order. The lesson of the hexagram is how to remove corruption from the kingdom. He who would do this must do so by the force of his character more than the force of arms. Never forgetting the dangerous nature of his undertaking, he must openly denounce the criminal in the court and awaken general sympathy to his cause. Among his own adherents in his own city, he must prevent any tendency to resort to armed conflict. As a worthy statesman, he is not motivated by private feelings. Hu Ping Wen says, if but a single inferior man is left, he is sufficient to make the superior man anxious. If but a single inordinate desire be left in the mind, that is sufficient to disturb the harmony of the heavenly principles. The eradication in both cases must be complete before the labor is ended. And then 22, our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence the direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. Kibi calls grace. Shows a mountain with the sun going down. Light, Li, fire, and light beneath Gen Mountain. What did she say, too? She said something interesting. I like this. In 23, it says, splitting apart, peeling off, creeping crisis, decline. '22, rather. Grace. This isn't it. Was it 43 that I thought was great? Breakthrough. Yeah, here it is. Breakthrough. Open up, eliminate, rupture, drive away. Get rid of the dictator. The bias is falling apart. Don't try to solve it by force. The top line Yao is a yin. Broken the line, so the melon is drawn as a symbol. In parting, is that what it's called? Breaking apart or parting? Adornment. Jeez. Parting was our primary hexagram. Adornment is our second, and it has Li, fire, and light below Gen Mountain. And it focuses on appearances. And that if you can make something look better through the appearance of it, but it doesn't change the inside quality. So as long as the quality inside is good, dressing up the outside is great. But if the inside quality is not good, then dressing it up doesn't make any difference. With that one, why don't we get a little hint of it from Hilary Barrett before going to our changing lines. 22, beauty. This is about natural beauty, like the beauty of a plant whose form is the perfect, simple expression of its nature. It's also about the way people create images to communicate something of a person's or thing's inner nature. This becomes a fruitful way to engage with the world when you have a purpose in mind, like someone who becomes a suitor for the sake of his bride, or a figure of authority for the sake of those she teaches. This is an image created for the sake of communication and relationship as a first step towards a chosen destination. Yet it only bears a small yield because it is only a first small step. Becoming something for someone is not sufficient to bring about significant results on its own. It's not the same as wholehearted conviction or ultimate fulfillment. No created image could ever express a whole person. So this is not a time to concentrate on results. It's a time for imaginative, lively exploration of beautiful ways the essence could flower and be seen. Perhaps the firelight is flickering over the rock face, this is in the image, creating shifting patterns of light and dark, or perhaps this is the volcanic fire inside a mountain, still dynamically shaping what appears so solid and established from the outside. The inner light of awareness shines through the outer form, so a noble one sees all the standards, all the ways the world is governed and ordered from the inside. He understands how things are defined and how standards arise and how many forms the inner essence can take. So where could he possibly stand to pass judgment? And in the sequence, beauty follows from hexagram 21, biting through. Things cannot carelessly unite and be completed, and so beauty follows. Beauty means adorning. Merely bringing things together is not enough to create true unity. Just getting to the truth is not an end in itself. These things will have no real presence in the world. No one will be able to see or relate to them until they are fully and carefully expressed. Our changing lines 2, 4, 5, and 6. 2. James Dekorne breaks down into 2 possible succinct definitions. A, vulnerable yet protected, forewarned is forearmed. And B, balanced perception protects the work from the excesses of unconscious forces. So in this, there's somebody at night that doesn't need to be concerned about armed people, armed belligerents, because they already know about it and are armed. Again, and then a quote from Yamamoto Tsunetomo in the Book of the Samurai. If by setting one's heart right every morning and evening, a samurai is able to live as though his body were already dead, he gains freedom in the way. His whole life will be without blame, and he will succeed in his calling. And the editor says, psychologically, late at night is when consciousness is asleep and vulnerable, and when autonomous forces within the psyche are most powerful. However, this line displays a strength that is balanced and conscientious. Despite anxiety, he is able to take care of himself. The line can be a warning to prepare yourself against approaching stress. Changing line 4 breaks down to changing 2 possible succinct definitions, A and B. A, you create hardship for yourself through your own stubbornness. And B, you haven't gotten the message yet. You don't understand, yet insist on pushing ahead anyway. And in the line area, it talks about, he injures his thighs, he walks with difficulty. If he were to follow like a sheep, remorse would vanish. People will not believe his words when they hear them. Having recently suffered, we advance with hesitation and are unwilling to accept useful but rather humiliating assistance. And then changing line 5 can be broken down into 2 possible succinct definitions, A and B. Succumbing to neither despair nor overconfidence, one resolutely eliminates every trace of inferior perception and feeling associated with the matter at hand. And B, a balanced viewpoint roots out error. In this, the image shows the small men like a bed of purslane, which ought to be uprooted with the utmost determination. The subject of the line having such determination, his action in harmony with his central position will lead to no error or blame. It's like ripping weeds out, and you have to be determined and intense about it and thorough. Otherwise, it'll come back around to get you. Changing line 6, broken down into 4 possible succinct definitions, A, B, C, and D. A, the image suggests the disempowerment of an inferior force. Quarantine without allies results in elimination of authority or influence. A negative inferior force is determined due to lack of support. No, a negative inferior force is terminated due to lack of support. B, the image suggests a sudden, unexpected misfortune of some sort. C, the image suggests a demonically stubborn force which escapes rectification. And D, you are alone without allies in a vulnerable position or questionable endeavor. All around with adornment after parting or breaking apart, it's almost like in order to deal with all of the unconscious forces, it's like finding center is absolutely necessary. And we need to be careful when addressing
unconscious things rising up in ourselves or within society, in that if there's an issue where it's permeated all the way to the very top, and or maybe even from the top down, it's going to take quite a bit to uproot. And what that means is we can't just go on without checking our own selves. And we need to be clear on what the actual underlying issues are, so that we're not attacking just outward shows of that, but really dealing with things at the root. When you uproot something, you want to be sure that you're uprooting the whole thing, not just pulling out the part that shows itself above ground. And that means likely within our own psyches as well. It's not necessarily uprooting it, but more bringing it out into the light of day and integrating it in some way that's healthy, as opposed to it showing itself in some unhealthy manifestation of some sort. Though we are forewarned and forearmed as far as the changing line with the people sneaking around, but somebody already knows about it and is armed, and so they're not in danger. Those unconscious forces, we need to be able to accept the wisdom of others and not assume that we have all of that and access to that on our own from just our own perspective. So taking in other perspectives is helpful. And if we can come together and unify to create a better future, that will entail likely dealing with things as almost like energies, as opposed to specific people and events and situations. Dealing with things by principle, according to principle, rather than according to party or taking sides of any kind. It's important to see the true issues in the world and within ourselves in order to address them. And if we don't really catch those unconscious forces that are showing signs on the surface and where they're coming from beneath, we run the risk of mitigating the situation at the surface, but having it come back and haunt us later on. So what kind of things in our own lives are surfacing that are maybe areas where we don't want to receive help because it's embarrassing for us and want to just doggedly go on our own. But to do that would cause us injury. We want to be protected and forewarned about these unconscious forces. We want to be thorough in taking care of the situation, and also careful in how we deal with things, especially if they're very, very, very rooted in and spread wide. It's kind of like dealing with things head on to a degree, but also cautiously. And yeah, the changing lines have a mixture of auspicious and inauspicious lines. It's almost like, depending on which way we go and how we deal with things, will be how we get a result, or maybe that there's going to be a mixture of both auspicious and inauspicious results. If we want to put the alchemical spin on it, like I-ming does, then I really like how he was talking about the discriminatory consciousness, and how the mind of Tao hopefully will rise up. Discriminatory consciousness, separating us from each other, all of those things. The mind of Tao is the mind that has everything contained within it. It's like not separating ourselves out from every other person or our world at large, but to have the understanding of the whole, and how each element could be integrated to complement that whole instead of every man for himself. And in the psyche, that's important as well. How do you get your own psyche and your own unconscious forces to work together rather than at odds with one another? We'll read 20, verse 20, that's 30, and 44 from the Tao Te Ching. My copy is by Jia Fu Feng and Jane English. Verse 30 of the Tao Te Ching. Whenever you advise a ruler in the way of Tao, counsel him not to use force to conquer the universe, for this would only cause resistance. Thorn bushes spring up wherever the army has passed. Lean years follow in the wake of a great war. Just do what needs to be done. Never take advantage of power. Achieve results, but never glory in them. Achieve results, but never boast. Achieve results, but never be proud. Achieve results because this is the natural way. Achieve results, but not through violence. Force is followed by loss of strength. This is not the way of Tao. That which goes against the Tao comes to an early end. And 44. I got a new crown chakra singing bowl here. It's nice. 44. Fame or self, which matters more? Self or wealth, which is more precious? Gain or loss, which is more painful? He who is attached to things will suffer much. He who saves will suffer heavy loss. A contented man is never disappointed. He who knows when to stop does not find himself in trouble. He will stay forever safe.